Hello everyone, it is Thursday, September 10th. This video is going to be about credit cards. And seems like I could expand my website and expand my website over and over again. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just leave the website alone, and I'm just going to make these videos whenever I have a topic to discuss, and then I'm going to simply upload it to my YouTube channel. And just kind of, because people know that they're watching a YouTube video anyway that's in my website, so really it's like, what's the point? If they want, they can easily find my channel with that little embedded video. The buttons are at the bottom. So I'm going to just go ahead and just kind of upload this to my YouTube channel. I'm not even going to try to go through the trouble of putting it, because then I got to pull out my laptop and I got to actually log in and get a Wi-Fi signal, and it's like, pain in the ass. But anyway, this video is about credit cards. And when you think about money, you think about, trust, responsibility. Money's not something that should be played with. It's a very serious thing that should be taken seriously. And the credit card system that exists today in America, I can't speak for other countries. There are lots of other countries that have a credit card system that's similar to the way that America does it. What's interesting though is that aside from like responsibility comes to mind, trust comes to mind when you think about money. Surprisingly though, another video that I had made in the past and is currently on MassageBF.com is related to this. And the reason why it's related to this is because I exist. And there are other people who probably have found themselves in a very similar situation. And then also even gun control. In fact, the president has been talking about integrating or being able to automate the system so that it automatically rejects people who have a history of being on antidepressants. And as you probably know, in order to get antidepressants, that means you have to go see a therapist or a psychologist. Okay, so, and in my other videos, I discuss about how humans are flawed, all humans are flawed, and so all of these man-made constructs that exist today in America, it's like, what are we doing? It seems like we're lying to ourselves. We're providing all of these false sense of security. We see, people out there who have some real mental disabilities, and so, sometimes they do bad things, but they're not the only ones that do bad things sometimes. In fact, those mentally unstable people who do bad things, the overall percentage comparative to sane people who do bad things is actually like way off balance. And so, it's like we see people doing this, and then we try and build, or we see somebody do something bad, and then we try to build these constructs, these man-made flawed constructs, in order to provide a false sense of security. And so I'm talking about credit cards, I'm talking about background checks, I'm talking about, driver's license even. It's all just, and this because, and I know this too because I've been cut off tons of times. I've cut off people a few times by accident, and I'm a licensed driver. I'm not perfect on the road either, but there's not a single licensed driver who's perfect. And so when you think about it, even a driver's license is a false sense of security. And then in other videos, I've talked about how therapists and psychologists are all just playing games. It's a false, it's a vague and inexact process, was my precise words in that other video. And so I find it interesting that, people are trying to push laws forward, and they're trying to expand on this existing credit card system because they want to make it impossible for people who have a history of being on a prescription drug from a psychologist or a therapist to get credit cards. And it's like, you have got to be fucking kidding me. Me, and I've spoken about this in other videos that are not only on my YouTube channel, but I've embedded them into my website. When I was a kid, and I'm not going to get too in depth on this, you can watch the video if you want to. When I was a kid, everybody wanted to blame me for my behavior. Okay, first of all, and I shouldn't have to tell you this, if you're a kid and if you're acting up, 9 times out of 10, there's a valid reason for it. Okay? And so, when I was a child, everybody wanted to blame me for the way that I was acting. Nobody wanted to take responsibility for their actions, such as my mom, my dad, my grandma, my sister, my family. Everybody just decided that I was their scapegoat, that I was going to be blamed for everything. Nobody wanted to take responsibility for their mistakes. And so they expect me to just do what they tell me to do, and I'm sorry, but it doesn't work that way. I mean, if you want respect, then you have to earn it. It goes both ways. It can either happen at the same time, which is always ideal, or you can just be a dumbass and think that you can just dominate everything, and it's not going to happen that way. I mean, think about it. If you can't force a Labrador to be obedient, if you're being a dick to a Labrador, that Labrador is not going to do what you tell him to do. I'm sorry. You can rub his face in his own shit. Hell, you can rub his face in your shit. The Labrador is never going to do what you tell him to do because the Labrador has its own free will, or its own, I should say, generic form of free will, because nobody really has free will, because there's always just one right answer to every single situation. And it's incredibly easy for us as human beings to be lied to and to be fooled as to what that actual, answer is. And so that's why we have to be careful, and we have to use our heads, and we have to use common sense. But I just find it really, really interesting. I mean, on top of all of the crap that's going on these days, okay, and it's all a bunch of bullshit. It's all a bunch of false sense of security bullshit is what it is. But okay, first of all, I don't have any credit cards. Okay, I'm going to be 28 in what's today, the 10th? So I'm going to be 28 in 4 days. My birthday is 4 days away. All right? I'm going to be 28. I'm 27 now. But I have $150 in credit card debt. In fact, I'm going to say that one more time. I'm going to be 28 years old in 4 days. And I have $150 in credit card debt. That is it. But recently, when I signed up for Costco, and every so often, I just kind of play these little games because I'm just curious. I want to test it out. I want to see how people respond to certain things that I do. So I just kind of experiment a little bit. Recently, I signed up for a Costco membership, and I bought their executive membership. It's like $120, and you get 2% back at the end of the year, or at the end of your membership term when it's time to renew. So you get 2% of every dollar that you spend. They send it to you on a check, which I think is kind of cool. It's kind of like a credit card. And so I figured, why not, right? And so the guy suggested, you should sign up for their American Express cards. And of course, their American Express cards they're not going to be offering them anymore very, very soon. I'm not entirely sure when it is, but I think it's January, but I'm not certain on that. But they're going to have a different credit card next year. But Costco has had American Express now for a long time. And so the guy asked me, he was like, I want to encourage you to apply for this credit card. And I told him, I said, and this was like a few months ago, so I said, I'm 27 years old, I have only $150 in credit card debt, but they're not going to approve me. And he looked at me like, what? And I was like, yeah, I'm 27, and I have $150 in credit card debt, and they are not going to approve me for this card. I'm telling you. I mean, I can fill it out for you, but I'm telling you, it's not going to happen. But and I was right. You know, I went ahead. You know, I played his little game and I filled it out, and he ran it, and he said, you know, they're saying they're gonna have to give you further review, and that basically means no. That's essentially I can basically what's gonna happen, and I still haven't gotten it, which is interesting. But basically what that means is that they're going to send you a letter in the mail that says, we regret to inform you that we cannot approve your request at this time. But it's just interesting. But it's like, I had one secured credit card when I was like 19 or some shit, like I think it was 20 years old. And I quickly, okay, first of all, I just want to say that I take full responsibility for that $150 in credit card debt, even though I shouldn't, but I do take full responsibility. So I want to go ahead and I want to be the bigger man, and I just want to go ahead and take full responsibility for that $150 in credit card debt. Okay, but I also want to say that when I was on the phone with the credit card company before I applied, I asked them, I said, if I want to extend my credit limit, how do I do that? And the lady told me, she says, after a while, if you're making your payments on time, then, and if you have, you know, a job and all that stuff, then we might wind up going ahead and extending your credit limit automatically. But then she said, you can also extend your credit limit by sending us more money later on, and we'll put that on your initial down payment, which I decided to go with I think I decided to start off with like a $200 like credit limit. And so, you know, I in order for me to do that, you know, with a secured credit card, and I'm sure you probably know this, you have to send them that $200. It's basically collateral. And so that's basically how they get you started with your first credit card, which is interesting because it's like, is that all you have to do? I mean, it's so easy to actually play the system if that's all you have to do to get started. And so that right there is like, what's the point of even having a secured credit card if all I have to do is send you money to get my credit limit started? It doesn't make any sense, right? Well, you know, I ended up, you know, I applied for the credit card, I sent them the money, they eventually sent me the card in the mail, and I got started. And then in the following month, when I decided, you know, I want to go ahead and I want to add another $100 to my existing collateral. So I called them back and I said, hey, you know, this is so-and-so, here's my card information, here's my account. I would like to go ahead and add $100 to my credit limit. And the representative that I spoke to, she tells me, oh, you can't do that. We're going to extend your credit limit all by ourselves. You know, there's a process and blah, 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 this and that we take to actually extend your credit limit. And then that's when I told her, I said, well, wait a minute here. When I first signed up for this card, which was a month ago, the person I spoke to told me that I can send you more money and I can extend my credit limit whenever I want. And she says, no, that's not how we do things, sir. And I was like, what? And I was like, you got to be kidding me. And so at this time, my credit card was basically maxed out. I was getting ready to make my payment online, but I had already made this phone call. And so what's interesting now is that nowadays there are still people who tell me over the phone, because, you know, I ended up waiting a few years because I was really pissed off. I was like, what the fuck? What the hell? You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And what's interesting, though, is that if you're a dumbass, you can easily explain what happened there. But you can't really explain what happened there. What happened there is that somebody lied to me and somebody didn't. Period. And so if you're arrogant and if you're a dumbass, then you can explain what happened there. But no, you can't, because in reality, it's arrogance. That's why so many people actually rely on the credit card system. And there's so much competition and there's so much money going into it. In addition to getting crappy service from that credit card company, that's just like the tip of the iceberg. Every single American citizen basically bends over and they get fucked in the ass without lubricant when they're really, really young. And that's how they buy into the credit card system. And what you're actually doing is you're actually contributing to the rich people of the world. You're actually making the rich people richer, and you're making yourself poorer. Okay? And in addition, I mean, I could sit here and I can have like an hour-long conversation about every single thing that is wrong with the credit card system. But I can't really do that, and I'm already over 15 minutes in this video. So let me just say this one point about credit cards, okay, and that is true, and I think that everybody needs to consider this instead of just falling in line and doing what almost everybody else is doing. I want to encourage people to think for themselves, use their own brain, don't just follow the leader. This is one of the biggest fundamental teachings that I try and teach people. And if you look at all of my videos, you'll see the overall bullet point is that I'm trying to tell people that they need to think for themselves and don't just fall in line and do what everybody else is doing, because that is a bad idea. Okay? But every single person is flawed, and the overall point that I want to make here is that you and I could say this even though I don't know who you are, I don't know who's watching this video, but I know something about you, even though I've never met you before. Or maybe I have met you, but even though I don't know who you are watching this video, I know something about you, and what that is that every single body part that exists in my body, you have those same body parts. You also have a spiritual existence that exists beyond your physical appearance, just like I do. You also have one God, just like I do. And whether or not if you recognize that one true God as your God or not, your individual ignorance is not going to constitute a change in reality. And so you are my equal. Now you can go off and you can whine and you can complain and you can just act like a child and just, because of what other people have done to you in the past and because of the experiences that you've had in your past. But let me tell you something. Two physical objects cannot occupy the same space. And so obviously, your past experiences with other people has nothing to do with me. And so having that said, each individual credit card company and the people who work there and they make decisions and whatnot, you have two choices. Option A, you can continue to lie to yourself, okay? And you can continue to rely on a false sense of security, which isn't really providing anything for you, and it's only costing money, and it's only costing time of your life that you're never going to get back. Or option B would be to just accept the fact that the infant that was born yesterday is no better off than you. And if you accept that reality, then you will just trust people. Instead of trying to rape the young people out of their first credit card by giving them, a $30 annual fee and a high interest rate, somewhere up there between, anything above 5%, you're not being treated with loyalty at all. That credit card company that you have, if your interest rate is more than 5%, they don't trust you. In case you did not know that, they don't trust you. They don't. They're not going to take the risk. And so the only way that they're going to give you a credit card is if they could charge you way up the ass. And so, all of you know exactly what I'm talking about. Unless you're married to the guy of the credit card company, it's like, exactly what I'm talking about. Your first credit card, you got fucking ass raped. In fact, your first car loan, you got fucking ass raped. And, in my particular case, I got fucking ass raped with my first credit card and my first car loan. Okay? But when I pay this fucking car off, I'm going to drive this motherfucker as long as I possibly can. and I'm going to keep it well maintained as long as I possibly can, which means that I have to be responsible with my money. And see, what's interesting is that I have a stack of paper that fucking thick. I just got a rebuilt engine installed into my car last month. $1,800 right there. And that's only because I didn't go to Midas. If I had gone to Midas, because they spend a lot of money on TV and they have this huge cost of business, that $1,800 would have been $2,500 at least. But because I went to a small shop, because I made a wise financial decision, I ended up spending $1,800 to get a rebuilt engine into my car. And, but since January of 2014, I've had to, well, first of all, between then and now, I've probably spent roughly $10,000 or more in maintenance. It might be somewhere in the neighborhood of $10,000 to $15,000, but this car had a lot of problems. Okay, it had a lot of fucking problems. Okay, I got a really shitty car, and I got a really high interest rate, and so it's like, yeah. But if I were to apply for a top-notch credit card like an American Express, nope, not gonna happen. But what's interesting, though, and I think about this sometimes, and it's just fascinating because it's like, I know what I'm doing with my money, and I know exactly, if I was not equally or even more responsible with my money than the people who are getting an American Express card, I would not still have this car. I would not be sitting in this car right now if I was not equal to or more than responsible than the people who are getting the American Express cards. And so it's just fascinating. It's just absolutely fascinating. And so you got to wonder, it's like, I was told, this was like a year and a half ago, okay? A year and a half ago, somebody with a government job, okay, sucks to be him, right? Somebody with a government job, I'm not going to say who it is, but this person contacted me, and he said, hey, we have a problem. And I said, okay, what's up? I don't really want to talk to you. I didn't really say that, but I was thinking, holy shit, I don't really want to talk to you, but I'm going to play this out anyway, and let's see what you have to say. But, he tells me, he says, it's been brought to my attention here in Denver that you used to receive government assistance because of a so-called disability that you had back in such and such time, back in such and such state. And, I haven't been on medication. I haven't been seeing a therapist or anybody for a really long time because I don't need to. But this guy told me, he was like, we have you in our system, and what's going on? And so I explained the situation to him, and I told him, I said, I'm not taking medication. I'm not bipolar. I'm not ADHD. I was raised in the foster care system. I had no rights. Or if I did have rights, nobody told me, so it was like I had no rights. Another flawed system. I'll probably make a video about that eventually. And so he was like, well, we're going to need you, I need you to go see a psychologist for an eval, but don't worry because you're not going to have to pay for it. The state of Colorado is going to have to pay for it. And so I just thought that was fascinating. I was like, why not let the American taxpayers pay the price for me to have a bullshit session with a bullshit person just for the hell of it? I was like, why not? I was like, I got time, okay. So I went ahead and I agreed to do it. And I met with this guy, and we had, like an hour and a half session. And check this out. And I was surprised. I was genuinely surprised because in my experience, there are a lot of fucking stupid people who have way too much power and way too much responsibility and way too much freedom in this country. But I was surprised. But the psychologist actually told me, he says, in my professional opinion, Mr. Francis, I think you're right. I think that you were misdiagnosed. I think that you were angry. And I think that you're probably a lot stronger than most people. And I'm not exaggerating. These were his words. He said, I don't think that you're bipolar, and I don't think you're ADHD at all. I think that you had a valid reason for being pissed off. It sounds like you were treated really, really badly by people who are just on the job for a paycheck, and they don't really care about you. And so it sounds like you felt like you were alone, which had its own series of ripple effects. I mean, he basically said this in his own words, and I'm sitting there like, holy shit, holy shit, holy shit, holy shit, holy shit. This guy is actually kind of smart. Whoa, right? Because I'm like, you know, I thought it was hilarious. When I had that phone call with this other person over the phone, I thought it was just, I mean, it tickled me inside. The very idea of me even considering giving a psychologist even a second of my time after everything that has happened in the past. I was like, you, okay. This is going to be fascinating. I mean, let's face it. I could go spend $10 or $15 of my own money to go watch a funny movie at the mall, or I could just have a free session and have it be paid for by the American taxpayers. Why not? I mean, this is going to be interesting. So, you know, I was honest with him. You know, I explained, you know, I answered his questions. Of course, we can't really cover every little thing in an hour session or an hour and a half session. But, you know, I took the whole time seriously. It was just very fascinating. It really, really was. But, you know, it's like in a world where powerful people are pushing to actually expand on man-made constructs that are already flawed, that were flawed a lot. In fact, from the time that they were created by human hands, they were flawed. The very idea of actually attempting to create something that is perfect is absolutely absurd in every possible way. And the fact that these things are actually happening on this planet is nothing more and nothing less than a testament of the sheer arrogance that exists today in this country and around the world. And so, you know, that's, wow, holy shit, that's 28 minutes right there, almost. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this video short. Like I said, I can't really cover everything and then upload it to YouTube. It's just, it would take way too long. In fact, I don't think I even have a video that lasts this long. I think this is probably a new record for me. So I hope that YouTube will actually allow me to upload this long-ass video. I mean, this is this is an American Dad episode right here. 27 minutes, almost 28 seconds, or 28 minutes. This is an American Dad episode. In fact, American Dad episodes and Family Guy episodes don't even exist this long. They're like 25 minutes because, or they're like 23 minutes because they have to fill them with commercials, or they have to leave space available for commercials. So I just did a full American Dad and Family Guy episode right here. That's pretty much it. MassageBF.com. It's September 10th, Thursday. Thanks for watching. And MassageBF.com. Have a nice day.